And they certainly don't care that Trump has a naughty mouth, said something, untoward off camera. They could care less. These are filthy people, right? Yeah, they're offended. No, they care about war. They want the power to kill. That's it. And that's the power, of course, everyone who wants to be God seeks to possess. That's why human sacrifice was the thing. I have the power to kill. Only God has the power over life and death. And that's the power they want. And Trump has stood in their way. Imperfectly, but Trump's the only president, since Jimmy Carter, most of my life, who hasn't committed us to a brand new war. That's what they hate about him. And that's what they were trying to change over the last couple of days. I saw it. That's all they cared about. And they lied about it, of course, and said all kinds of things that were like insane and totally untrue. But that was the motivator right there. And when Trump came out in 2016 and said the Iraq war was a mistake, which was very obvious to those of us who were in Iraq while it was going on, it was like news to nobody. It was shocking in Washington, and that was the point at which they sicked the FBI on him. They started bugging him. They decided we cannot have this guy because he was trying to limit their most important of all power, which is to hurt other people. And so you should just know this. That's what the stakes are. I think he's going to win. I think it's going to be really important to rolling back some of this insanity. But there are a lot of people who have other agendas, and you should just be aware of that.
All right, guys, so I've been watching a lot of Tucker Carlson recently, and I want to get his take as to what happened on Saturday that just went, 13th of July. And not just that, because I don't want to just keep on going around, like I'm sure we all know, like what happened and the things that are coming out about what happened on Saturday, etc. Cool. But I want to get his take on that and how he sees the landscape in America politically, culturally, how it's moving forward, what he thinks is holding it back, etc. So I just want to pick on his brain. And I found this very, useful, this clip. So let's just have a look and we'll evaluate after, as always.
Let's start with a homework assignment. Yes. Based on what you just said, things have changed since Saturday. A lot of Americans in the center, and maybe even some Americans on the center left, saw that near tragedy, that near assassination of President Trump, and they realized, oh, maybe I've not quite figured out what's been going on. A lot of us have been in that category. You've talked about that yourself. We at Heritage have said that. What do you advise the people who are in this auditorium and also the people online to do with members of their family, friends, neighbor who still don't get it? What's the advice that you give us in having those conversations to bring them into this movement that Trump has built?
Well, I kind of feel at this point that first of all, anyone who thinks the status quo is a good idea is probably not convincible. If you let tens of millions of people into your country illegally, you destroy all your cities, you wreck the economy, you can't afford to go out to dinner, things aren't going well. And if you're willing to ignore that, then you're probably not someone I can persuade. So I would say that. Never give up on anyone, but probably best to just pray for those people instead of talking about politics. I really think the core problem in the country right now is bad leadership, and by bad I mean weak. And I think more broadly, weak men are the problem. You watch these schools indoctrinate kids and try and turn them into freaks, circus freaks. And in the country that I grew up in, the dad would just punch the counselor out. Put me in jail. I don't care. Like you weirdo. I mean, that's like child molester stuff. Talking to my kids about sex without telling me. Where's dad? He should be beating this person, like physically. And I'm happy I just said I'm against violence, but that's like a very basic, that's the most basic requirement of fatherhood, but also of leadership more broadly, is to be willing to die for the people in your care, period. And if you're not willing to do that, you're contemptible. And what is that? What are we looking at when we acknowledge that? Well, we're looking at the fact, which is strength is the basic requirement of leadership. Weak leadership is an oxymoron. And with weak leaders, a nation dies, a family dies, a weak father will destroy a family. A weak officer will get his men killed, and a weak president will wreck his country. And that's exactly what we've seen. I mean, Biden's core problem is weakness. And what Trump displayed on Saturday was strength of the most basic kind that is absolutely impossible to fake. You can think whatever you want about Trump or whatever you've heard about Trump. You watch that tape, the guy is shot in the face and is bleeding, and forces the Secret Service to allow him to stand up and faces the crowd. I mean, all men, when they're boys, tell themselves, well, something happened, I would jump right in and, you know what I mean? Like, I'd stop the shooter. But you don't know that, actually.
Yeah.
because you're not faced with it. I mean, very few people are tested in the way Trump was tested on Saturday. And not only did he pass, he got the highest score ever recorded. And so you can't look at that. And it's not, again, it's not fakeable. That's just real. It's undeniably real. No one staged that. And so anyone who looks at that video, I think comes away thinking that person has to lead the country because the option is more destruction. That's what I think. Just watch the video.
During your comment there and also your comment from the podium, it occurred to me that C.S. Lewis's great phrase "men without chests"
Yes.
is really apropos here. And not to go too intellectual or academic here, although remember I do lead a think tank. It seems as if yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree. It seems as if Americans are saying Washington elites, New York elites, all of these elites have complicated life. And what Trump showed us in that moment of near tragedy, as you said, is just something basic. And what we're all yearning for is just a return to normal. And it is normal for a strong man, for a man, period, to respond the way you described to the school counselor, with all this disorder. It's normal, although very, very heroic and on a tremendous scale for President Trump to have responded the way he did. But it shows how starved this country is for just normal things. What's your prediction for themes this week at the RNC from a messaging expert who's got his pulse on things? What should the campaign really focus on? Not just for President Trump and Mr. Vance, but for people out here in the audience and digitally who are going to be involved in local campaigns. What do we need to be emphasizing rhetorically?
Well, I mean, I think, can I say one thing really quick, which is the definition of strength, I think, needs to be a little more precise. Strength is not abusive behavior or authoritarian behavior. That's what weak people do. That's what Gretchen Whitmer did during COVID in the neighboring state of Michigan. This is a demonstrably weak person with a facelift who's like terrified to go out in public. And yet she's telling people they can't buy paint in a paint store. That's not strength. That's fragility. She is fragile and brittle, and that's why she's acting that way. True strength is calm. That's the first thing about strength. Someone who's actually strong is in command, doesn't need to prove it, because people can smell it. The second thing about strength is it serves others. Willingness to die for the people you lead is a prerequisite. Okay, I'm not afraid. I'm willing to lay down my life for you. Okay? That's clearly the message of strength. It's what Trump displayed on Saturday, and people's reaction to it is amazing. They instantly calm down. Dad's home. Everything is okay. It's received on a visceral level. So to the extent that the campaign, and I'm not a messaging person, obviously I'm like half insane and can't stop talking, so I'm not good at messaging, but to the extent that they can convey that, it's fine. Actually, and I do think the campaign is trying to say that in its unity message. And a lot of people hear unity and they think, well, unity implies some sort of compromise conversation. You can't have a conversation with people who are unwilling to compromise. The left, which is a religious movement, is unwilling to compromise on any level at all. They won't even admit men can't become women. So how can you have unity with people like that? And of course you can't. But I think what they're really trying to say is, let's ignore some of the insanity, actually. Be in charge. You don't need to constantly remind people you're in charge. Just do it. I mean, a good father's not constantly telling you how hard he works to, pay for the food you're eating. He just does it. And you notice after a while, and you're calmed by that. And I think maybe that's the message. We don't need to respond to all this nonsense. You're too small to respond to. That's what I would do. No one wants to hear, why is MSNBC still on the air? Nobody watches it. Same with CNN. Nobody watches it. And if I look back on my life, I've worked at both CNN and MSNBC. So for me, it's, the hatred is absolutely real. But too much, though. Too much. Unhelpfully. Don't feel hatred. That itself is a sign of weakness, in my opinion, and a lack of self-discipline. But why are we even talking about them? Nobody watches. Nobody watches. My nephew get drunk and post something on X, and he's got more viewers than MSNBC primetime. I'm serious. So, why are we even giving them oxygen by engaging with them? Their audience is tiny. I hope that's part of what they're saying. I saw Don Jr., who is really my favorite person in Trump world, who really, I think, does understand, I shouldn't even be saying this, but it's true, understands the voters and how they feel. like on a real level, on a gut level. But I saw him do an interview with MSNBC today, and they're like, are you going to separate more families at the border? Really, you let in tens of millions of illegal aliens and wreck our country, and that's your concern? And he just looked at the guy, he's like, yeah, go away. Like, enough. He didn't yell at him, just go away. I mean,
Yeah, I spoke about this in my last video. That's what he's talking about right now. So I spoke about this in my last video, where the MSNBC reporter, just went straight up to, Trump Jr., put the microphone in his face, was like, your dad's divisive. He's like, hang on, no, you guys are divisive and you're just paying them out to be like that. Then eventually he goes on to say, is he going to carry on splitting up families, etc.? Can you imagine that? No respect. But anyway, let's carry on. Almost done.
It's not even worth it, actually. And I think that posture is kind of what's needed right now. I'm not going to engage with you. I've tried for 7 years now, 8 years, to have a conversation in good faith. I used to try to book these people on my show. Not one person will come on my show to debate the other side. And then, of course, I got fired anyway. But it's like it's better just to be like calm and in command. And I think that restores tranquility to the country faster than any rhetorical argument you could make.
So that's high profile national example, which is great. And I also want to give some folks an idea of what they might be able to do locally. And it seems as if you're saying, whomever you are, national profile, don't engage with these outlets that are dying, don't give them the oxygen. That there's also a lesson there about what we might do at the local level. What I hear most of all as I'm traveling the country from people like in this audience, I know you do as well, is, Kevin, what advice do you have for me talking to my local school board, talking to my local city council? They, of course, want to cancel us, but at some point, people are going to those meetings, especially school board meetings, because they are invested in it with their own kids and grandkids. What's your advice for them? Because and I think you know this, but our rationale at Heritage in asking that question is, we want this to be not just about DC and New York power centers. We want Americans after Saturday's tragedy to understand this is also about what we're doing in our lives on a daily and weekly basis, and to give people that advice about how to expand the ranks of this movement locally.
Well, I think Saturday is the inspirational moment to do that. And what's the lesson of Saturday? I mean, there are probably many lessons. One is, like, if a guy 150 feet away at a political rally climbs a ladder with a rifle, maybe this whole system is not quite what we were told it is.
It's not. It's not.
Sorry. So there's that. But the big picture takeaway is bravery is the essential quality. It's the essential quality. What's the takeaway from Saturday? Trump's going to be president because he's brave. Period. Like, actually brave. Physically brave. Facing death, shot in the face. And unbowed, unafraid, defiant.
Tucker Carlson, very clear and concise with his evaluation of the political landscape in America and the cultural landscape in America. But I feel as if there are three main takeaways that, he spoke about, which are very, very important. And the first one being bravery. I don't mean to talk about this too much, but I want to contrast, Trump and Biden. Seeing Biden, who is sheltered, from the public, Biden, who his wife has to, take him here, take him there, tell him what to say. He has a teleprompter. Obama is even like taking him off stage after they've greeted the audience because he knows that Biden is not coherent and he's not responding well. So he has to help him off. So one guy is being sheltered from the public so much so, and the other person is being so exposed to the public to the point where his life was jeopardized, last week, Saturday, 13th of July. So bravery is key. He showed the utmost trait of bravery, and bravery is very easily spoken. A lot of people talk about bravery. Oh, I'm brave. If this happened, like Tucker said, if this happened, I do this, I do that. Trust me, I'll be the first one in. But trust me, in life, it doesn't work like that. Sometimes people freeze. Sometimes they don't have experience in certain situations, so they just don't know what to do. They panic. So freeze, panic, fight or flight mode. Sometimes they flight, they run away, they don't fight. The talking part is easy, but when a bullet grazes your right ear and you don't know if there are other shooters in position in close proximity, then it's very hard to be brave in that situation. When you don't know what's going on, you don't know what's happening, You know, now the details have come out, okay, cool. But in that moment, you know, he had no clue what was going on. It could have been curtains for him. Someone could have been shooting from another angle. Something could have been set up, waiting for him to go, and then they get him again. You know, there could have been anything happening. And, you know, in that moment, he chose to fight. You know, I don't want to talk too much about it because, like I said, you know, I'm sure everyone knows, you know, the specifics of, you know, this case. And yeah, but bravery is definitely the number one takeaway I took from it. Number two was sacrifice. You know, sometimes you have to be willing to sacrifice something for the greater good. You know, in history, you know, great leaders were sacrificed for their beliefs because they went against the establishment, because they were saying things that even aligned against the elites and what the elites wanted the people to know. So a lot of prominent figures have gone and they've had to pay the ultimate price, which was their life, because of what they believed in. So sacrifice is important. It doesn't always need to be in that form of life, but you must always sacrifice something to achieve something else, is what Tucker Carlson was getting at. And I also think that he was alluding to the point that sacrifices need to be made by the everyday citizens so that the establishment don't win. Because after this situation that happened last week, Saturday, the government could potentially introduce more censorship. You know, they may say, hey, you know, people are becoming too radicalized. We need to start censoring people more than we already have with this current cancel culture, woke culture. In addition, they may aim to take away, you know, the American citizens' guns, you know, their gun rights. And lastly, he spoke about indoctrination to the kids. You know, I've been saying this for a very, very long time. You know, kids don't need to learn anything, you know, in relation to sex. They don't need to learn nothing. They just need to be kids. They just need to enjoy their lives. When they get to the age of 18 plus, then they can choose what they want to do, what avenue they want to go down. Because at that point, they'd be, you know, developed mentally, physically to make that conscious choice for themselves. I don't think that they need to be learning about this in school. And there seems to be such an urge to teach the little kids about these kind of things and why it's important to know this at a young age. I don't want any kid to be knowing this at a young age. You know, they can learn about that, you know, later on in life. They just need to enjoy being kids. When was it such a bad thing to just enjoy being a kid? So he was talking about, you know, them indoctrinating the children, which again, 110%, I definitely understand. You know, you shouldn't be teaching the kids anything, you know, to do with sex. So yeah, that just goes without said. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't see it like the way I do. A lot of people think, no, they should be learning about this in school. Why would you stop them? They should be learning about it from the moment they speak. And I've heard these kind of conversations on college campuses in, you know, in America and even parts of the United Kingdom as well, which is just crazy and baffles my mind. So yeah, I think those are the main three takeaways that, you know, he spoke about, that I wanted to bring up in this video. And that's just be brave, be willing to sacrifice, and stop them from indoctrinating the kids, which is very, very important. So yeah, but anyway, guys, comment down below, like, comment, subscribe, do all of that, and I'll catch you at the next video. Peace.